Hi, Troy. Welcome.
You look great, Troy, but you got to keep that mic closer to you.
You should do it like, what's his name, Liam Gallagher with, he gets right up into the microphone. He puts his arms behind his back and he just leans into it.
Imagine a roadie that has to pick up that microphone and clean it up. What do you think Liam Gallagher's breath smells like?
Potatoes.
I'm going to go to Oasis. You guys should come. I'm going to go to Oasis in Japan for my birthday.
Oh my God, I'm in.
Wow.
Good, Brian. You can see what it's like to spend concentrated time with AB.
Should we get started?
Where do you want to start today, Brian?
Well, first I want to start with welcoming everyone to People versus Algorithms, the show about media, technology, culture, AI, connecting the dots. I'm Brian Marcy.
It's about everything.
Everything podcast.
Life, man.
Joined by Alex Schleifer.
Hello.
And Troy Young and AB, aka Anonymous Banker.
Are we bringing AB on for the whole episode?
He's here.
I can stay on for just part.
No,
No, come on. This is the new All-In. We already talked about going to Oasis in Japan. So are we taking the PJ?
Those shows look amazingly fun. I mean, I haven't, I just think it's a good throwback, and it's yet another example of why live events are going to be massive. And
is it uncool?
Massive. Oasis?
It's very cool.
It seems really
cool.
uncool to me.
What,
I never
Oasis
liked
is uncool?
Oasis, so it's hard for me to say.
I mean, they got a
liked
couple
Oasis.
hits and they're obnoxious, and they're for people that don't really have, like musical taste.
Oh, here comes the snobbishness. It's fine. An Oasis concert is just fun. Some things can just be fun, Troy.
Couple
That's
of
true.
hits and obnoxious.
Yeah,
could
they're
be the
like
name of-
ABBA,
could be the name
ABBA
of
for
your-
dudes.
I mean, it's this song that everybody remembers is the one that they play at high school graduation, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not as uncool as Coldplay.
But the thing is, they don't even have to sing. He just starts singing and everyone sings the entire song. It's great.
That's what happens when you only have 4 chords.
Whatever. All the music snobs could hate on it. They're going to make like $1 billion.
Yeah, and I mean,
off
I think I'm still burnt because I was a Blur fan at the time, and
Blur.
and it was a Blur versus Oasis. It was the Michael Jackson versus Prince of its time, and Oasis definitely won.
Yeah, all the snobs were like, no, Blur is the best one. And like Oasis ran the table.
I mean,
with
it's
that.
better music, but yeah. Anyway.
It doesn't matter. The marketplace is the marketplace.
That's right.
We got some audience feedback about the dynamics. I got an email from a listener who asked.
Well, you come for the topical information about media and marketing and gaming and all that, and you stay for the parasocial dysfunction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The question was, is Troy actually a nice guy? Actually, was doing a lot of work.
Of course he
there.
is. Dear listener, of course I'm nice.
And then there was a question about whether Alex is on the spectrum or not.
Dear listener, yes.
Yes.
I mean, I think Troy's a nice guy until you ask him a thing like, "Hey, can we do some planning for next podcast?" Or, "Hey, are you gonna be in New York on those dates?" Then he turns into a fucking monster.
No, Troy won't come into New York during the summer. That's a snobbish thing. Not like in Oasis. It's like being in Manhattan isn't cool during the summer.
And I'm coming to New York.
That's why we'll see you. I'm going to actually come in and see you, Alex. But
Okay.
So you're
Well,
coming in.
I'm flying tomorrow, so some plan would be great to have some
planning.
idea. I think just on a neurodivergent thing, like, I don't want to. Some people have real challenges with that. I don't want to, kind of make a joke out of it. But I have, there are 2 types of ADHD, and I have both, and they're both like cranked up to 11. So yes, I'm neurodivergent, but I'm not on a spectrum. I think. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, so let's get into. I have a couple of quick hits, and then we'll get into all the AI stuff. Vox Media CEO Jim Bankoff was recently on with our friend Dylan Byers on his Grow Room podcast, which I think. Wait, Troy's been on it. AB's been on it. But just Alex and I have not been on.
I mean, I'm not even mentioned. I'm the other guy.
Dylan's podcast. That's fine. That's no big deal. Anyway, he did really
I'm a
interesting.
little offended. I've been called neurodivergent and the other guy in the last week. So.
It's okay.
At some point, it starts getting to you.
No, it's good. It's good. Well, look, you were you were the breakout star until AB took that away from you.
That's true.
So
Yeah,
blame him.
Yeah.
Blame them. Anyway, one of the things that I thought it was an interesting discussion with Jim when they finally got into it. You know, he's good at these things. I always found him to be a very, realistic and good conversationalist around this. But a lot of what they were talking about was basically Vox being almost like half talent management firm. And I think this is, if anyone can actually pull this off as a legacy publisher, it seems like this is a very good lane to be in, and to be able to do all the things that individuals are not going to, for the most part, want to do with building up infrastructure and building up distribution, but be able to like make the economics work. AB, I want to start with you on this one. Do you have any thoughts on like how publishers can nurture these kind of personalities and be able to strike business deals with them that are not like employment deals?
Yeah, so I think there's a really good analogy I heard last week, which is sort of like a sports team. Everyone has the same name on the front, right, which is the team you're playing for. And then there's a select number of players where the name on the back matters more. And so I think for both sides, both the talent and the publishers, it makes sense to harmonize the relationship and let them earn value in other ways, but keep them as part of the platform. As Kara shopped her podcast deal around with Scott, like they ended up going back to Vox because they realized, oh, wow, this ad sales team actually had a lot of value. They know our product. And I think there's a lot of things Kara can probably get if she wanted to turn back on her conference. Vox has the team to do it. And so I think more and more, instead of the news releases being, hey, I left this platform to go to Substack, it's going to be like, oh, no, this writer is allowed to write or is going to start writing on Substack or is going to be doing other things. The podcast thing has been around for a long time, but I think more and more people that have a real audience, they're going to lean into creating other types of content and figure out ways of making additional money. Being a journalist where you're only writing editorial content that lives on a website and maybe in a newsletter for your main company is not that valuable and they can't pay you that much. So the only way to make more money is by going into other mediums.
Yeah. Troy, what's the bear case to this, to publishers actually being able to do this?
I love when you have a media question, now you go to the banker. Sign of the times, Brian.
I'm just trying to mix things up.
Yeah.
I thought AB's response
You're
was
doing a
great.
good job. Jim Bankoff's like the last honest guy in media. I mean, he just gives
Last or only?
the only. He just gives, a perfectly, by the books interview, praises all of his partners and his staff, and just comes off as being a great guy. And he is.
He took a shot at Barry Weiss and this idea that they would get a 20x valuation, but then he quickly said, no.
Yeah, I mean, he'll make little subtle points about him having to live by the rules of economics and stuff like that, I think, which, is in contrast to something like maybe the Atlantic. I think it was in the context of the question about the Atlantic, which I believe is now profitable, but certainly had the loving hand of a philanthropist to get there. I think Jim's super smart. He's great. And listen, what does it mean to be able to blend, a kind of media brand driven and talent driven company? I think it means that you have the complexity of managing union expectations around fairness and compensation with what you need to pay, breakout talent. You have to, figure out, I think the hardest part about it is that if you're not careful, the economics get away from you. And after you pay for your operational overhead and your ad sales team and all that stuff, if you pay too big a chunk to the creator, you can have a kind of mildly or totally unprofitable business. So Jim's had to navigate that. He's probably done a great job. You saw the deal with Kara and Scott where they took 70% and he gets 30 for managing, some operational bit and doing the ad sales. So those are kind of lower margin businesses, and you got to have other things in your portfolio that are higher margin to balance them out. But I think that creating an ecosystem that can support both, hired help and talent is the magic kind of Venn diagram, and good on him if he's able to create it.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to be talent than hired help.
One nuance here too. There's at some of the places. So as we talk about this question, we think about Peter Kafka and Kara, but it's actually allowed some of the younger writers and content creators of these places like Business Insider and Morning Brew, where they've actually built content channels on other platforms like TikTok and Instagram. And so it's just, to me, it's like a better way of like widening the top of funnel to get future subscribers, because you have these journalists making shorter form content that can live in places where the younger audience is actually engaging, and they recognize, oh, this person is a content creator that I really like, and they also write for Morning Brew. Maybe I should subscribe to the newsletter, right? So you don't have to just think of it as a normal Kara model. There's newer ones where some of these creative people that are younger are actually getting their voice heard a lot sooner than just having to sit there and be a staff writer.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
exactly.
in other media news, Dotdash Meredith, the elegantly named Alex's favorite company. I did get a note from Neil about Alex's joke, and he said something very mean about Alex that I didn't share.
That's a nice thing to do, to say somebody said something mean and then not share it.
He thought it was fun. Well, yeah, I'm trying to protect you, Alex. He thought it was funny. You made the crack about, he can get on another bike to nowhere or something like that.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, it was funny. But, meanwhile, Condé Nast told the writers.
Well, so wait, they
yesterday,
rebranded Dotdash Meredith. Let's just get the news out there. They rebranded to People Inc. Okay, so Dotdash bought Meredith, which is the former Time Inc. properties mostly that had bought Meredith.
Correct.
And then they rebranded it from Dotdash to Dotdash Meredith. And this is a corporate holding company for a bunch of different brands, including People. And now they're going to People Inc., which is sort of a nod to the Time Inc., because Meredith was really Time Inc. Go on.
But it's a nod to being anti-AI and the fact that actual people make the content. And apparently Barry Diller's idea. Nice idea, actually. I like it. Good one, guys.
Why is it a good idea?
It's just simpler. Dotdash Meredith is kind of icky. Sounds like you're going to the dentist.
It's a corporate name.
So People's nice. Got a nice ring to it.
Okay, so congrats.
Meanwhile,
Neil.
today, Condé told the writers to get off Substack.
They
Did you see that news? Yeah. They don't want them, freelancing on Substack.
Huh.
It's breaking
That
news.
seems to be counter to the direction that AB is advocating. Alex, we haven't heard from you. You gotta chime in. We got four.
He doesn't
people
care
now.
about this stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to offend Neil.
I think we should go back. We could talk about Substack and intimacy again.
Wait, what did you say, AB?
Oh, he's on this intimacy thing about Substack. Please don't indulge him. No, honestly, seriously, he can have a role in this podcast, but he can't start to have an agenda.
I have my Scott Galloway unifying concept of why people are having sex. So Condé Nast is not allowing people to write Substacks?
That's what I just read.
Oh, wow.
Just
I mean, to me, it's like it's not allowing someone to have a Twitter. I think that policy will change really quickly. The other nuance with that policy, Troy, might be they might saying that for the staff writers, but a lot of the way that the magazines are put together is freelance, right? So it's a weird thing for them to not allow their in-house talent, but some of the people that write a lot of the content for their magazines have their own Substacks already.
It's backwards.
It just means that, in essence, you have to becoming a freelancer becomes a more attractive deal. Like you have more perks, right? Because you can do.
Well, if you're a freelancer, you can become talent, right? Like you don't want to be Troy's hired help.
I think the
exactly.
key thing is that you manage control of the business deals around the media. So I had an example that I had to navigate a few years ago where a very senior editor at Hearst was striking deals on the side with beauty companies to do influencer kind of stuff and advocacy stuff. And it was I thought it undermined our business proposition for an editor of a publication to be able to go out and sell her services to one of our clients, where it was obviously in our interest to have that client come through us. So I think if Jim's going to
by the way, to capture most of the value on the arrangement.
Yeah, and at pennies on the dollar. So, if Jim's going to, you're going to pay for the talent, you're going to want the rights to sell the media.
I mean, to me, it's just people are going to want to move to the talent side of the ledger than the hired help side. And that involves more risk, but that also involves, if you're Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, you're doing business partnerships. You're not like negotiating your PTO. And, there's upsides and downsides to both approaches. I want to move on. New York Times, Amazon deal. We're starting to get numbers from some of these AI deals. And I think it is inevitable that these will be struck. And I think the big question ends up being, what are the financial terms that they're going to have? Apparently, the New York Times deal to license, or the Amazon deal to license New York Times content for AI training and summarize their articles in Alexa and whatnot, is about 20 to 25 million a year. And this matches up with some of the other sort of high-profile deals. I think the biggest publishers are going to be able to strike these deals. I don't know about all the publishers. What is your, I don't know, what do you think about this deal, Troy? Or the numbers? Because I think that's the big question.
What I
think,
think,
how much?
I guess just thinking about it now, Brian, you don't mind if I call you Brian, do you?
No, please. Bry guy. I hate that.
That was one of the comments I don't know if you read it, Alex, so that was one of the comments in the feedback from the audit, from that, I don't know who it was that sent that to you, Brian, that I address people like I'm picking you to, like a daddy. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, but that's your role to play.
Yeah.
Daddy's home.
Okay. On this, you know what it says to me? And it's a game where there's going to be really big winners or significant winners, just like in kind of the new platform era, the next generation of the platform era, which maybe we can discuss in a minute. But, it doesn't hurt the New York Times to syndicate out their content and put 20 million in their pocket because, I am a subscriber and I buy it for the bundle and I play the games and read the headlines and look at the food section. And if I see, a snippet on Amazon or it's, Wirecutter content is recommending a product there or something, it doesn't change the fundamentals of the relationship that I have with the New York Times. All it gives them is more, gunpowder to build their business because they just added $20 million. So it's going to be great for the flywheel, original reporting, kind of big media, publishing media brands like the New York Times and maybe a handful of others that strike these deals, and it just really fortifies their business. Few others will get something anywhere near this scale. And, I really do think it just really advantages the scaled winners in the game.
And just to kind of tag on, win for New York Times, News Corp will sign a deal. Like a few people will get these types of deals. The real flywheel here, so yes, it's an AI deal, but think about where else this content may show up on Alexa, right? Like on all these different other ways that consumers currently engage with Amazon. And in the New York Times doesn't have a device in everybody's home. And whenever it shows up in an Amazon environment, I'm sure as part of this deal, it's brought to you by the New York Times, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you get a good recipe, it should, in the consumer's mind, say, oh my goodness, this was actually really the recipe. I want to go subscribe to the New York Times. So I look at the $20 million as actually a nice to have, but the main goal of the New York Times and what you see in all of their earnings releases and the way that they talk to the market is we have this subscriber goal that is in the future, and everything they do is to grow the subscribers to continue to do that, and that allows them to continue to make better content. And so I think the reason why they did this deal is not for the 20 million, but more so to widen the aperture of who knows about the New York Times and the quality content they produce. Because that's Cooking and The Athletic are two other places where maybe you don't agree with how they cover politics, but there's not Republican and Democratic cooking. And sports, there's a little bit of that, but I think The Athletic has done a pretty good job of reporting on sports from the bottom up and not getting involved in the politics of sports. So I actually see the value here of having the opportunity to have a lot more subscribers back to the New York Times.
Yeah. And it's also a sign that, brand still matters. And, this deal is about the brand. They want the brand to be in these AI search results. One of the things that strikes me is like, you were talking about this being like almost like a winner takes all game. Right. And we've seen this across the economy, but like when we're going into AI, it just looks like there's going to be some companies, individuals that are going to just uncouple from the sort of masses. And I want to tie this together with a few different things. Meta returned results, and I'm like, okay, yeah, results.
They staggering.
Grew 22% revenue. I mean, this is $47.5 billion. This is not like growing from like a small base.
This is a company with a 49% operating margin.
Like it's astounding, right?
I mean,
you're the numbers guy, AB. Is this astounding?
Well, I just want to, before AB does the AB thing, both of those numbers, the Meta number and the Google number, are just staggering. Google's quarter was $96 billion. Okay. They both run between 30 and 40% margins. Like they're enormous. I mean, with huge.
These are better businesses than Vox Media and People Inc.
Well, I mean, NBC just announced, and they're still losing money on their streaming service. So, and NBC's still kind of high on all the cable profits, even though they're in their kind of the last gasps of life. So what's amazing to me is we all kind of appreciated the platform power before as kind of, network effect benefactors, things that tied us all together without content costs, great repositories of data, incredible algorithmic driven ad machines that could pull money out of all parts of the kind of media buying spectrum, small to large. Now they're gonna, like, if you saw that, I think I shared a piece with you guys from the FT on the scale of these data center investments. By the way, I think that the annual number for Google, and you can check me on this, but CapEx is like $85 billion. But if you look at these massive, like gigantic computers that exist in the middle of the country and in Texas and in Virginia and in Ohio, like these are incredible facilities that can't be replicated, that have like just this kind of like, so few people can participate in this. So in the case of Google, you're making the silicon, you own the data center, you own the data, you own the consumer interface, you have this brand. Like, these are insanely powerful and profitable companies. And just, I think this chapter where now they're all fueled by these gigantic physical facilities and huge amounts of compute that are impossible to replicate, really give you a sense like that this kind of new techno-industrial economy led by like 4 or 5 companies is really like a hegemony. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like, a lot of attention has been paid to Meta and even Zuckerberg personally going out there and putting out insane offers for AI researchers. I mean, I guess maybe they're not insane.
I mean, it's like paying Brokaw in a way, right? Because they don't pay Brokaw. Alex, when I met you, it was all we could do to merchandise social media as a place that advertisers would ever run their ads, because the idea of running against UGC wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
And now, like, the Meta ad system is maybe one of the most important assets in the world. Their ability to monetize a stream and decide what you get, and then slide ads inside of there. It's profound. It's amazing, the transformation.
I mean, this is why it's always interesting for me to record these episodes, because I live in Silicon Valley, and the sheer numbers and the scale of these companies is very both like predominant here, but also has been so normalized that numbers don't mean anything anymore. And nobody's surprised that Meta can, like, there's always been this joke where if Meta has a bad quarter, they just need to flip a few switches so they can get a great quarter next year.
That's always the Google thing. Google's been able to do that forever.
And it's important to think of these companies like the buffer that they have for things going completely wrong, right? They can spend billions on all sorts of things, and it's a speed bump for them.
What about the metaverse? How much money have they flushed down the toilet on that?
Precisely, right? And I think that what we're looking at, because we've been talking about talent, we have to think of these engineers And and I was tech talent. I was paid a lot more than I ever expected. I was a nerd that liked computers, maybe neurodivergent, so they made me happy. They were my friends. But all of a sudden, I went from trying to drag everyone into forget advertising on social media, putting your brand on the fucking internet, which felt dirty to a lot of people, to being headhunted, and treated like an athlete. And when you think of these talents, like forget Brokaw or Kara Swisher, stuff like that, once these people are gone, the company usually doesn't make that much money on you. But an engineer that builds a system that's going to run for like 10 years and accrue hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and is a great investment, even if you pay them millions of dollars. And once you're dealing at the scale, the tiniest little changes you can do can mean 50, 100, 150 million dollars. It's wild. And to think that these companies care about the survival of media companies is to
no, they don't.
Yeah, and Alex, the point I was making is it's wild where you see you don't see Meta, you don't see Google, right?
Yeah.
It's if you drive by their campus and stuff in NorCal, you'll see it. But when you start to see these data centers and the amount of energy they consume, and then
they don't want you to
it's
see
not just about the data centers. It's also about the power connection, right? So they're funding nuclear and they're building, connections to the grid. Like it really is a crazy time where you can see. And by the way, the investment in all of this, in chips and power and everything that supports it, could end up. Is there a chance that it just blows up? Like there's a good chance it blows up, don't you think?
We could have brownouts and rolling blackouts because
I don't mean blows up that way. I mean becomes a spectacular bubble.
Yeah,
for sure.
and there's more concern around. So talking to folks here, like first of all, even if we're looking at these investments, the free cash flow that these AB will know better, but that these companies generate, like I said, they can handle a pretty big collapse of these things. But one of the concerns is that the infrastructure investment, they're not 5, 10, 20 years infrastructure investment. A lot of the cost goes into things that you could essentially consider as consumables, right? Those GPUs and things like that are consumable. Now, however, we might all benefit from the electrical grid improvements and turning on nuclear power plants if that does.
Well, they're going to take all the energy. So they're not building this for us, Alex. I'm not the naive one. One thing just on that, the Mag 7 is now, which is just the name for all the top tech companies, is now 33% of the S&P 500. So you want to talk about systemic risk. I hope they pull it off because that's basically what everyone's.
NVIDIA is a massive risk, just like a geopolitical risk, right? Like China, starts, getting interested in Taiwan again, and NVIDIA has this huge risk attached to it, and the entire stock market is linked to it at this stage.
So one of the other things is Meta, they're starting to roll out their story, right? Their narrative about AI. And now it's about superintelligence, which to my mind is a great rebranding of AGI, because AGI is such a nerdy tech thing that literally is meaningless. When you say superintelligence, that's a nice brand. That's a People Inc. That's a nice job. Barry Diller, I think, would approve of that rebranding. And so they're pulling it together. They're obviously paying a lot of money for a lot of researchers. And we see this time and again, I feel like, with these tech companies where they master one thing and then they become capital allocators. And they sit on hordes of cash and they deploy that capital. And when we're going into this superintelligence era, and I'm going to get into this because I was reading this Economist article on it, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit. And maybe it's obvious, but to me it was putting the pieces together, which is that in an era of superintelligence, let's just say it does come to fruition the way the sort of tech oligarchs are saying. They're talking about economic growth just decoupling and basically becoming 20 to 30% a year. And most of those gains going to a very few number of people and entities. And most of it being around who has capital to deploy. So they're able to build these massive data centers, hoard all this compute, take over, and restart nuclear reactors for a reason, because they have a cash machine that they are now flooding into this new boom. I think that has like incredible implications, because one of the things that Zuckerberg was talking about yesterday was that the AI that they have, which by the way, they have it because they can apply it to ads. Same with Google. So sorry, Apple, your anti-ads thing was a big mistake. And that the AI is now like building more AI. And I think this is really interesting when you play out the implications of this.
I think it will, in the deal context, and it's not really reported that well in terms of how much value has been created with some of these relatively new AI companies when the Mag 7 buys them, buys 49% or what, does these convoluted deals to get around antitrust. But you have companies that have some AI technology, but they're effectively being acquired for the people. And the people are having significant impact. There's a business that Google acquired last year, and that team went in and fixed Gemini. And so, but there's this idea of like decoupling or the economy changing. I would make the argument that it's already happening from a deal perspective, where you're basically seeing deal values that would have never been possible. You look at like what Microsoft paid for Excel when it first. I think Microsoft bought Excel or bought one of the PowerPoint. Actually, it paid like $10 million, right? If you had a good AI company today and we have the right engineers, the value is billions of dollars, which is wild. And so I'm saying something different than what you're saying, Brian, but I think we're already starting to see very significant changes. There's not a media entrepreneur today who has in their deck, besides Substack, a goal to sell for billions of dollars. It's just not possible. And the levers of building value in AI are just out of control. We've never seen this sort of...
It's stupendous. I mean, you look at like, there are people, and this was pointed out, this is not an original thought of mine, but like the amazing thing is not that like Zuckerberg is out there offering $1 billion over like 4 years or something. It's that people are turning him down, like who are at the Mira Murati firm. Like that is like, what do they know? Like, it's one of those, I'm like, wait a second, what do you guys all know? Alex, what do they know?
What do they know about what?
Well, like if you're turning down as, what did you call it? Hired help. If you're hired help and you're turning down $1 billion over 4 years because you're at a no revenue, no product startup in this field, what do you know?
All right, I'm sounding like Peter Thiel answering a question.
It's like, are you the Antichrist, Alex?
Here's what I think is happening. There is maybe some of these folks sound like zealots a little bit. Especially when it comes to AGI. And it is not, there are a lot of, I think there's like maybe 3 camps. There are the true believers in AGI, and they truly believe this will change the world and this is their one shot. I mean, they're talking about curing every form of cancer, stopping death, uploading ourselves to the cloud, the kind of group of people. There are those who don't believe that, who believe that like AI is definitely a thing, but AGI is unlikely to happen in the way we expect it to. And then there's folks who are definitely a little bit more about using AGI as a way to drive market energy, right? Which is just this idea that they keep kind of changing the goalpost, where it's AGI is essentially anything that will replace a human job. You don't know which human job, if it's data entry or tech support or whatever, but that's not true AGI. So I think you need to look into like what's in people's hearts, right? Like I don't think anybody truly knows. I think that we have, for the first time, we're used to linear trajectories in tech where you can kind of see where technology is heading. Here, we can see that there's a lot of expectations that have been set that are actually like not at all connected to reality, where these large companies have invested in millions. And we've seen very smart people at Amazon launch an Alexa that was meant to be smart, but didn't do the, immediately started doing silly things. We saw Apple screw that up. So I think there is, even within people who should know better, a very fuzzy look into the future. And so I don't think anybody truly knows. But if you're a zealot, then, and you think that you're going to build God, then yeah, you'd say no to $1 billion because that's worth $1 trillion.
One of the things that defines San Francisco is this mix of techno-optimism and idealism. And I think that what I'm surprised you didn't mention, Alex, is to a lot of these folks, these people are ick, right? Like they don't want to be part of Zuck's superintelligence plan. And they're already rich, by the way. I mean, rich by any normal person's standard. They have millions of dollars.
They have enough to live a very good life.
So
they
I
have a
think
pool.
they're in a
They have a
position
pool, right?
where they can make, moral
in San Francisco,
judgments.
that's rich, yeah.
Yeah. So the other, they own their house, they have millions of dollars, and they have, an idea of what kind of place they want to work in, who they want to work for, what kind of world they want to live in. Now,
And also, a lot of them feel that time is on their side, right? Where they're part of a very small group of people. Their value is going to keep going up. But that's very.
The other thing that article is really interesting, and Brian, I don't know. This is an article from The Economist that you sent around, and part of the context is for centuries we didn't have any material productivity growth, and so humanity.
I had no idea that the economy didn't grow for centuries.
Yeah, until we had breakout sort of innovation in the industrial economy, right? Like that's when we started to see more productivity growth. But what you're going to see, at anywhere near 10, 20, 30% productivity growth, I don't even know how we navigate it, because the point that they made in that article is we're sort of entering a phase where digital abundance meets real world scarcity. Like the price of things goes to zero.
Well, that's the
price
cost
of a lot of-
disease. The cost disease part is interesting to me.
Well, So just dealing with that from a social perspective and the unemployment that comes along with that, and this idea that there's an AI kind of driven productivity that decouples labor from growth, right? Where you don't need the people, and then I'm not entirely convinced that the way that we develop consensus in this country or anywhere in the world is anywhere near prepared to manage the kinds of divergence points of view that come along with that. It's terrifying.
Well, I mean, it's like plumbers are going to be making $2,000 an hour and lawyers are not. And there's going to be, I don't know if that's the case. I know AB does not like to hear that professional services are good.
Well, AB makes a living out of referring business to lawyers. So
he's got a dog in this fight.
There's two things here. One is, I think people's perception that I think it will actually have an easier impact on blue collar jobs versus white collar. And every time I say to people, the robots aren't coming for a long time, I think they're going to come a lot quicker. And it's a lot easier to disintermediate blue collar people because everyone has had something break at their house and had someone come. The quality of service varies widely. You see this with Waymo. You take a Waymo a couple times and you're like, oh, this is so much better than taking an Uber. Because sometimes you get into an Uber and the person has interesting music or they want to talk to you and you're like, I just want to sit here. And so I think that the blue collar work will get disrupted at a much more rapid pace. And it's not going to affect every blue collar job, but there's a lot of places where if you eliminate all drivers, including semi-type truck drivers,
category in the economy, truck drivers.
Yeah. And you go, well, it's just a couple percentage. No, that's those are a lot of really good jobs. Does
the idea of an unmanned semi barreling down the highway controlled by a robot frighten you?
No, because what's the alternative? If somebody that's driving across the country, they're usually unhealthy because of those working, because they're sitting 12 hours a day. They're usually hyped up on.
They're taking more than Zins,
drinks.
AB.
Yes. And so it's you compare, we took Waymos in a weekend. My son was, he knows, he's 3 years old. He said, hi, Waymo. He got in as an early consumer. He was way more excited.
Well, I'm
to take
happy that your
Waymo.
son is happy.
Yeah.
It's great.
He's ready for the robots to control it. But here's one other interesting point that I think a lot of people are missing in the white collar world is AI, for my job, is actually best utilized and controlled by senior people, not junior people. But most firms are set up where most of the work is done by the junior people and the senior people are out talking to clients. And so I think it's actually going to take a lot longer than people think for it. And there's a couple platforms already that a lot of banks are using for some of the basic outputs for investment banking. But I think to get real leverage, the senior people need to use it. And a lot of people that I talk to, they use ChatGPT now for fun and some research. But I think you'll see firms that will actually create new organizational structures to utilize these technologies in the right way. So AI is way more powerful in my hands than it is in a 22-year-old analyst. And we should think fundamentally differently about how these organizations are setting up both investment banking and investing.
So I think the question I have, and maybe this is naive, Troy, I'm gonna say that, is that when basically if AI is going to be creating the ideas, okay, because eventually it will be, right? Like this idea that like Meta doesn't have to come up with new ideas, really. It's just about capital. Because one of the things that stood out to me in this Economist article and piecing this all together is, and this has been out there, okay, is that it's just about capital. Like you just need to have capital to deploy. And I almost feel like we're in this period, and maybe I'm getting too paranoid, where, as a kid, we used to play this, game by necessity where you would hit the garage door and then scramble to get under it before it closed because we didn't have like a way to close it.
We did that in
from the
Regina.
outside. Oh yeah, it was a 1980s like thing, and if you didn't get out there, it was going to hit you in the head. I kind of feel that with capital accumulation right now, because if you reading that article, if you play it all out, like you better have capital now, because if this does come to fruition or anything near it, like it's just about who has capital, because you just plow it into. If you have capital, you can buy more compute. If you have more compute, you can have more productivity. It's not about, you don't have any leverage in ideas or thinking. Am I missing something here? Am I gone too far into the singularity? Alex, you're a representative from the singularity.
There's going to be a lot of change, but it's very hard to predict it. And I find a lot of these lists and predictions. First of all, the technology is nowhere near ready. I think it's ready to get somebody pretty senior to work more. But I'm looking at some of the downstream effects of that, and a lot of things are going to change, and it's probably going to be really unpredictable. Like, for example, if more senior people start using AI and there's less kind of shit work for junior interns to do, then what happens to the internship path? Maybe we don't have kind of a talent path moving forward. I don't know.
It seems to me that we spent a long time, maybe the last several decades, kind of downplaying the importance of a type of work that may have involved some amounts of brain and manual labor, some amounts of, training at tech colleges and stuff. And I think that as you guys highlighted, those will be important jobs, but kind of mid-tier knowledge work that was in some ways a kind of category of achievement for a lot of people, getting to be a director at a bank or at an advertising agency or a consulting firm. That's the stuff that's gonna get really get hammered in the short run. And it doesn't actually, Alex. I agree with you that the technology today is so kind of wildly imperfect or unreliable, but in the short run, like that AB can do the work of 10 people is really where you're going to see the impact.
And I think we're having a hard time predicting this stuff because we're looking at multiple points in the future and in the past, right? Like what happened when technology replaced all these jobs in the agricultural jobs in the past, and then we're being promised this AGI future that may or may not come. What I feel is probably I don't know if jobs will be whole swath replaced. There'd definitely be some categories that do that, but my expectation is that the concept of work and career and how well defined it is will be very different in the future.
Yeah. I mean, and if AB is any indicator, I now have a kind of different perspective on him because he did spend the weekend at my house. And that guy is always on. I'm telling you, he's a nice guy and everything, but like he's making a deck or opening his laptop or sending a text or, doing something 24/7. So if that's the future, if that's the emancipated future, I don't want any part of it.
No, agents are going to be doing that for AB. So
I had dinner with someone earlier this week at a big venture firm, and I think you would be surprised at the largest firms are already starting to implement these things in very unique ways that will completely change their operating structure. There's no point for them to signal to the market that any of this is happening, right? It's a competitive advantage. And so I think a lot of this stuff is already happening. And there's large institutions that will be slow movers, and they don't need to change for a couple of years. But I think that there's going to be, similar to how this Facebook stock is just rip. I mean, I looked at it this morning at 5 o'clock getting off the red eye, and I was like, holy crap, like it's up 20% or some crazy number. I think we're going to be all surprised about this like impact when everyone's like, oh wow, there are firms that have figured this out way faster than other ones, and they've already been doing it. And then some of the slower movers, it's going to be really hard for them to catch up. The nice thing of banking is some of the larger institutions control capital and other services that the more nimble firms don't want to disintermediate. But like, it's already happening. Like at his dinner, everything that I'm thinking about, this other person was, and they're already applying it at a pretty rapid pace, and you could move so much faster. So
well,
I was really surprised.
You look at what these tech companies, they've been like, fine, a lot of it is performance stuff, but like they've been shedding. Like, so Meta has been like doing layoffs this year, and they're still able to grow like tremendously. And to me, that just shows that the leverage of like labor is going down. And
how layoffs have transformed from being the like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm running a bad company, I'm failing, to like a badge of honor in corporate America is amazing.
Well, I mean, I think like it's incentivized, right? The market usually.
Well, the stock market has always liked layoffs.
Yeah, but and the thing with the layoffs is I think they would happen without AI, because these companies are so rich that they're very bloated. And so you can go into any of these tech companies and easily find like 10-20% that you could lay off. And like there's also this running joke that we had in some tech companies that we could all go home for 3 months and the business would still grow, and that's true, right? Once you have this kind of crazy business, and they're also like kind of retrofitting AI into these layoffs as a kind of the idea is that you pressure the team by making them smaller, you flatten the organizations, and then you kind of nudge people to start thinking differently about their work so that they can cover some of the gaps left by the people who might have gone.
Yeah,
and,
I can do this forever.
Working out.
Let's move on to advertising for a bit and the new path to getting attention, because we saw like one side of the market with what Meta is doing, and then Google's results were tremendous. Performance is all going towards these platforms. AI is going to be amazing at making ads more performant. Sorry, Mark Cuban, who came out and said, advertising should be banned from AI engines. That's never going to happen. And
do we get to talk about Sydney Sweeney now?
Yes, we get to talk about Sydney Sweeney now, because there's multiple controversies going on. And I think now the controversy is you have to do controversy to break through the algorithms, and conflict is the name of the game. That is how you get attention in the information system. The Sydney Sweeney Great Genes uproar, American Eagle had a new advertisement featuring actress Sydney Sweeney. She is an actress, but she's most known within certain corners of the internet as, I guess, their favorite, like, hot woman. I don't know how, Troy, how would you describe it?
She's hot. She's a woman.
She's hot. She's a woman. So, it immediately sparked debate, maybe some outrage. Some people from the more progressive side claimed it was all about eugenics, and this is, basically going against inclusive beauty standards, which have become the norm in the last decade. And I have seen studies that have proven that including plus size and inclusive models and whatnot, it actually does lead to higher sales. I don't know. That's just what the research says. Obviously, Sydney Sweeney has a very classic look. She's blonde, she's blue-eyed, etc. I won't go into all the details, but and the other side has celebrated this as this is yet another. The end of woke has been going on now for longer than supposedly the woke era existed at this point. And also, by the way, in retrospect, the sort of quote unquote woke era has become worse than the Cultural Revolution. I don't remember it that way, but that is how it goes. Troy, you want to take this one? To me, the story is about like the outrage, and I have a broader point that I can make about Sydney Sweeney.
Could I start?
Yeah.
Can I start?
Oh, go ahead.
At the hub. And now you can talk too. But I mean, so when people make movies, right? They the reason why they pick stars is they're worried about what the box office is going to do. And so I'd bet at a lot of these studios, when they consider who they're going to pick for a movie, if they look at their reach on Instagram and other places, and they say, okay, if we can get Sydney into our movie, we can guarantee 10 or 20 million of revenue, and they stack that with the other stars they get. That's why you always have, but if it's not an independent movie, you're trying to basically bring in a cast that will get people to the movie theater or watching it other places. So I think the reason why the out's on the screen, you'll make her more valuable is like, it just introduces her to more people or reinforces her to her current audience, is that she's good looking, she's relevant. And I think a lot of people that like her probably just ignore all this noise around it's kind of funny. It's like, I think most really good jean advertisements have hot women. They're not always white, but usually that's part of the appeal of a good pair of jeans is they fit nicely and they have certain contours on their bodies that show it in the ad. So I don't know. I think there's a part of media that just likes to be mean or call stuff out when it's not really that big of a deal. I think the more fun thing is the South Park episode, but I don't know if we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, none of us is really entirely qualified to talk about parts of this thing, but it does, to me, at first when I saw it, is just a company looking at somebody who's very popular, and I mean that in kind of the broadest sense. She's a movie star, but she's also represented on social. She's a meme. She's a meme.
She's in
the conversation all the time.
Interesting.
Part of it is the way she looks, but part of it is the way kind of she projects herself and is comfortable in her own skin.
I don't even think that's it. She just got taken over by internet culture, and she became a meme for her breasts. That's what it's about. It's not I kind of feel bad for her in some ways, in that she worked really hard to be an actress. She started at
I wouldn't
11
feel too
years
bad
old.
for her, Brian. She can be both.
Let me just finish. I know they really love to cut me off, but she started as 11 years old as an actress. She would drive 20 hours to go to auditions, and she did an extensive PowerPoint for her parents to move so she could be an actress. And she put in the work. Then all of a sudden she became famous for something totally different, which I find these articles say that she's well known for Euphoria. Give me a break. She's not well known for that. She's known as an internet meme. And she might not have wanted that.
I mean, that's just the age we live in today. If Brad Pitt, the idea that talent drives star is not true. It's a combination of how people look. Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Cruise and all these people, they're amazing actors, but there's 10 of those guys in Hollywood, and 9 of them work at Olive Garden, and then there's one that popped, and it's part tiny and luck, but it's also have good luck. Brad Pitt in Fight Club, it's in amazing job acting, but he also has an 8-pack, right? So I don't think it's objectifying her body. It's just how society works.
I agree. I mean, the thing is, just to bring it to the outrage, I haven't been able to track the outrage. It seems like there's a scale of outrage, from beauty standards, which fine, if you want to have a conversation around that, all the way to this is a nod to eugenics, which sounds kind of paranoid.
Insane. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it is paranoid. It's completely
because it's just, I think
have
it was just
lately?
It was a cheeky joke, and it landed in a way that you really think that they're putting through a message to celebrate eugenics when they do that. And it's the type of discourse that then gets picked up. And I actually don't know how big it is, because most of the time, as I'm seeing it, I'm just seeing it represented in the media. It could be 7 people.
I don't think it's genuine. I don't think anything in marketing is genuine. It's marketing. It's meant to provoke particularly certain corners, particularly of the media. That to me is the goal of this. And I think it's kind of ingenious. I mean, Astronomer did something very similar in some ways, in that they became the center of another sort of, and this is a little bit of throwback, another sort of viral moment when their CEO and head of HR were canoodling at a Coldplay concert and got put on the kiss cam. So they took their lumps, and the CEO got sent packing, and I assume the head of HR did too. And so they hired Coldplay singer Chris Martin's ex-wife, Gwyneth Paltrow, to do a very funny and cheeky video. And we see it here. Gwyneth Paltrow was the temporary spokesperson for Astronomer. And I think this was done by Ryan Reynolds, a Maximum Effort agency. They're known
was
for
it?
this kind of
Amazing.
viral.
That's amazing. And he probably has her on speed dial, so they can move quickly.
Yeah, they did this really fast.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's a return to like viral marketing. On both in both.
I mean, if this will win
sides.
the Cannes Lion, Brian.
Yeah, it should.
And think about, this was probably effectively free because they fired the guy for pause, even get his pay package, and they won it a couple $1 million, and they're money good. So
That's amazing.
Nice one.
I mean, it's also like analyzing their reaction when they were on that kiss cam and all the different choices that they could have made that would have not turned this into a thing. But one of the things I found, did anybody know about Astronomer before this happened?
No, never heard of it. Guy went to my college. I had never heard of it. Must be the most well-known person who graduated from
And I
college.
kept hearing in the news that Astronomer CEO, and I thought it was this famous CEO that was also an astronomer. But I guess people know the brand now. It's a shame that there's no like consumer.
Well, they're just like a
product
B2B
here.
brand, right?
Yeah.
Alex, maybe you can check me on this, but while I think that everything these days becomes a kind of artifact for your own personal commentary or point of view, such that you can take something that someone's put into the, to the kind of internet sphere and, use it to kind of make whatever point you want. I got to say that I think that the creative process behind the Sweeney thing was far more benign, and that someone said, hey, she's hot. Let's get back to these days of like simple jean advertising, like Brooke Shields and her Calvins, or like what was that Fly Me airline ad that was briefly famous, where the sort of hot stewardesses were like saying, fly me, and there's a whole
those burger ads or the GoDaddy ads
or the GoDaddy ads, and they said, if we can get Sydney Sweeney, let's invest the money. American Eagle has lost relevance. The stock price is down 40% or whatever it is. She looks good in jeans. Oh, jeans. Oh, we can make a joke about that. She's got great jeans. Write that in. And that's kind of how it happened. And then, it became a kind of fertile, piece of content for all types of conspiracies and sort of coded, social aspirations. And so it became, I think.
So you don't think it was
fortunately,
intentional?
I
Right.
don't, but I do think that good creative
I really don't
these
think that
days,
at some point in the marketing meeting somebody said, you know what, we could reference eugenics. Like, I don't think that's
yeah. But I do. I mean, they may have said, "Listen, people are going to talk about this for sure."
They
Or
said
that, like,
they
also
meant it
that,
to
like,
they meant it to provoke, and I don't
Yeah.
understand let's just say they did. Like, I think that's a very good marketing strategy. That's stuff that AI probably for a little while isn't going to be great at. But like, you want to like push people's buttons. Look at how you get attention in media. I mean, look at the all-in people. Like, I mean, this is for better or worse. Everyone's a carnival barker out there looking for attention. And so being able to hack this system seems like a good strategy.
I mean, I'll be curious to see if the awareness translates into sales.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I would also be curious, guys, to see if they follow up with maybe another more diverse hot person that they can turn this into a bit of a franchise.
Yeah.
Okay, good. One other thing, Vogue has, again, I don't know if I never know if any sort of backlash things are real, right? But they ran an AI generated ad from Guess. It was entirely created with a AI generated model. Supposedly readers found it quote unquote disturbing because the CGI model looked quote unquote too perfect, sort of a bit of an uncanny valley effect. And that there was only tiny fine print that Vogue noted it was AI, and critics quickly amassed to call it cheap, lazy, desperate, particularly for Vogue, which celebrates creativity, and fashion is obviously very rooted in the creative.
Is this the one that I have on screen right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like AI.
Yeah, I know.
It's just incredibly boring.
It's so boring.
It's just so horrible.
Well, plus size models.
It looks like I get ads like this on Instagram for like a match 3 game where they just put somebody's face like that on it.
Here's one interesting. So this is probably a symptom of it, and then stepping back and younger people being there. But I remember at South by Southwest, I watched Marquez Brownlee do one of his talks, and what I realized the really interesting thing about AI is these agents can show up more like the person they're talking to. So Marquez was using OpenAI, and like the voice he had was different than the one that I would choose. And so you can see that this outrage stuff is so annoying. People just need stuff to write about. I think the more interesting element here is in the future, if Conde does a better job of collecting your user data and knowing who you are, you're going to actually start to see, it's not going to take the form in print, but in digital, the different content that's produced, one, they don't have any money to do this stuff anymore, so they have to move to AI, generated stuff. But the second thing is like the models are going to change to actually represent the person that's reading it. America is a very diverse place. It's like 30% Hispanic. So in the future, this average stuff is such a distraction to what actually can happen, which is Vogue will have 4 or 5 different images that they've generated based on the reader that's reading it. So if you're African American, it might be an African American model. If you're whatever the right term is for being white, Caucasian, it's going to be a white person. If you're Hispanic and you want to see a Hispanic person, it's going to be a Hispanic model. So I actually think, because that's how the AI models are now, when you have a thumbs up, you can make it color-coded based on your skin color, but more and more, I think these media companies are going to be creating images that resonate and align with who's reading it, so they feel like, oh, this is something that someone I know.
They're going to also
right?
find ways to do it where it's less shitty, because I think just generating people who don't exist, I don't know if people are going to like that, but I think, models and stuff like that are probably going to license their likeness so that they can regenerate the photo shoot with 20 different people. And it might have been even a real photo shoot and real outfits, but it can kind of refit them naturally. I think the thing people react to oftentimes is there's no real person behind it. Even if it looks really real, once you find that out, it's very unappealing. Just psychologically, I think we have just like a neurological response to something that isn't real. However, making something that looks like somebody else and using that, I think that's going to be a lot more accepted. Like the Trump thing.
Yeah. So like one note on that, like, I don't know if you have it, I had put it in the chat, but like there was the top 40 occupations with highest AI applicability score that got ranked, and models were on that top 40 list. And there's actually a lot of good reasons for that. Anna Wintour has noted that she doesn't like models on set because like there's so many problems with models. They're typically very young, that you gotta like watch out for the lecherous photographers and whatnot. And
it's 36 on the list. And you know what? Like,
it's pretty high. It's not journalists, but it's pretty
I've known
high.
a few models, and I've worked in the media industry enough to know that these people are already treated like objects. And I'm pretty sure that as soon as they can snap their fingers and replace them, they will do it.
Yeah. That's one of those. Model is one of those professions that, like architect, I think people think is far more glamorous than it actually is. I mean, you're basically being treated like a piece of meat. And like you've got a bunch of like people you don't know who are like grabbing at you and changing things on you, and like so.
Or it can be, but it's one of those jobs where you really only see like 100% of what you see are the 1% success stories, and you don't see the 99% of what's really going on. So it's a very skewed view of that role. But yeah, but I think people are going to. I think that there will be. And this is fully a prediction. I have no idea, but I think that there will be. There's such a drive to generate these images quickly, but there's such a response to people who don't exist that there will be a lot more licensing of people's likenesses so that you can say this is a real person, and people are going to start caring less and less of how the picture was taken.
Okay, middle ground.
By the way, every picture you take today is a fake AI picture, even on your iPhone. That scene never existed. You never looked so good, everything you take through a phone or a digital camera right now is being optimized in a way that makes it not a real snapshot.
Well, that's actually, I saw something that a lot of like, quote unquote, the young people, trademark, are, with the rise of like messy authenticity. It's like the kind of return of Polaroid or point and shoot cameras are back a lot now, because messy authenticity is in. And like you said, the AI enabled like photos, they look too perfect. They don't like.
I think
we don't want to look like AI.
There's a real movement right now in just like art and design, which is like anti-aesthetics.
Yeah.
And so it's like both like people coming into age, and so this really ugly early 2000s like graphic design is coming back, and then with videos that are shot like that are maybe overlit and or underlit, shot on cameras that aren't, polishing everything up. And then even the 4:3 form factor has come back. A lot of young YouTubers are not doing things in widescreen; they're doing it in that 4:3 old TV form factor, and that's a fun thing.
Okay, let's do good product.
One is a bit of a reflection that I just thought of now, but one is I'm really into black Australian licorice right now. I think it's delicious. They sell it at the grocery store on Shelter Island. I love it.
How much does that run? Is that like $12?
Alex found it right there. It was only
What does
$5.
that licorice
I love
cost?
that. So good.
$16 for your
$16.
licorice.
By the way, that's on licorice.com.
Is that a People Inc. property?
It must be. Oh, there it is. Yes.
The other one is I was thinking today that every year around this time, I get this sort of melancholy, summertime melancholy, which is like knowing that we're moving into August. Sorry, someone's mowing my lawn.
This segment keeps getting more relatable. Go on.
Yeah, that we're moving into
Can you
August.
tell your masseuse to move out of the way, please?
My masseuse is here. Speed this up.
We're moving into August, and you can see the end of summer, and it's beautiful outside. But we all feel this thing of how the season moves so fast, and it just gives me this. The summer's this thing that we build up to. We really get excited about it in the spring, and we kind of don't want it to end, but I guess its beauty and its virtue is that it's short-lived. And I was walking today with my dog on the beach thinking that I need to just enjoy the feeling, actually, that it is fleeting, but that's the beauty of it. I don't want to get overwhelmed with this sort of like the end of summer is coming, and how quickly it went by, and I just want to enjoy it and not come into the city.
It's not even August.
Summer is like the only time of the year that there isn't a holiday, right? So like such
July
4th of
4th.
July, but like, yeah, but that's not that good. But it's like fall has Thanksgiving, winter's Christmas, spring, Easter. So Sober's awesome.
I don't know. I'm
think
gonna be in Italy in a week, and I think summer's amazing. And
I don't
if you
think I
don't
said
want
it
summer,
wasn't
and just move to
amazing. I would
Miami
say
because
it's
it's
fleeting.
summer all the time. So it's not. It doesn't have to be fleeting.
No, the thing I like about it is I'm a seasons guy, Brian, and that's all I know.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, that's the vagina in you.
Yeah.
I have one very quick good product. I went to like a gelato place, and I got like 2 scoops of gelato, and I was happy. And then the guy said, "Okay, and you also get like a 3rd mini scoop on like they put a little cone in the top of the 2 scoops, and then you got a 3rd mini scoop on top of it." And it was just like a total surprise. And I thought every single business needs to find their little mini cone that they add to the product, because that makes it like a unique
Where was that,
experience.
Brian? Was that in Miami or in New York?
It was in Wynwood. It was called like gelato and like macchiato. which is
Wynwood's
a
the
strange-
neighborhood in Miami.
Yeah, it's the one that it's just like Bushwick if it was done by like an ad agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does Steve Wynwood have anything to do with that?
No. It's just a formerly decrepit part of town that they made into like a very branded kind of like self-consciously hip area.
My product is maybe you guys talk about it, but the Starlink thing is, I think, such a game-changing product. I bought it at Best Buy for $500, and as much as people can hate on Elon, like the product innovation around what they've done, and they should be having fast internet anywhere is wild. You could carry it in your backpack. There's this add-on, which is like this little battery, so you don't ever need to plug it in. I'm a little bit scared to buy it because I don't want a Chinese battery to blow up on an airplane when I'm taking it somewhere, but you just turn it on, and in 5 minutes you have an ability to do Zoom calls or watch YouTube videos, and it's
Well, we were playing tennis, you guys. I was playing tennis with AB, and he plugged in
Your internet was too slow.
He plugged in his Starlink and put it in the middle of the lawn.
We had to give you a break from playing. So in between matches or whatever they're called, I get to work.
Wow, that's hardcore. All right, let's leave it there. So I think this is a good winners take all episode. It's my working.
Yeah, I have a bad product.
Okay.
Okay, I can't wait.
And a public service announcement. Do not download the public preview of iOS 26. I think just, I've been talking to some folks and it's a beta. So, there's an expectation that it's a beta. But I've downloaded every one of these betas for years now. This is by far the one where I look at it and I say, they're going to have to walk so much of this stuff back or change it so fundamentally that it doesn't really look the same by the time it gets released to the public. It's a pretty baffling set of changes that
Didn't
they did.
Marcus Brownlee love it? He gave it some.
This is the liquid design stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you can even see it in some of the screenshots of how hard it becomes to read thing. It really feels like they've designed it to look good on your kind of like your idle screen, and then everything else feels a little just like not thought through. It feels harder to use than it ever has. And I love new shit. I always try it out. I was excited about iOS 7, even if it had flaws. This one is the one where I'm like, God, I really wish they kind of didn't go there, because
Alex, I'd be curious to get. I really am looking forward to that home screen, and that you can change. You'll notice when you change the height of the type, it dynamically reshapes the x-axis, and then it parallaxes. You can tuck it behind an object.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
It's very cool.
Yeah, the problem is everything else. And also
is it hard to read?
Yeah, I find it hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
I find it hard, which, because they're doing stuff where they try to dynamically, it's very impressive. They dynamically change the text depending on what's behind it, which looks fine when something's static, but you're spending most of your time scrolling through media on the internet. And it just makes anything that you're reading or any toolbar just completely shimmer and change shape. And it's look, they're gonna solve it at some point. It might need a couple of versions, but right now, early adopters, I would say just watch out, because it makes it's not unstable, but it makes,
like, how does something
harder.
like this then get out the door at a company like Apple? Like, it seems like pretty obvious. Like, when people saw it, it's like, yeah, this isn't usable. Like, I mean, designers always do things that you're like, no, this is like, you can't read anything.
I'm really shocked. I mean, actually, this is one of the things I don't understand what's happening. I'm really shocked because it wouldn't. I'm pretty sure that this stuff wouldn't have made it out the door, and it doesn't feel essential in any way. Where the change feels, like it's trying to show off a technology rather than really prove its case for why it needs to exist. And so it's interesting. I don't know. I think that it shows like that, things that are Apple are a little, maybe they're scrambling. Now, all the features that they added are actually really good. There's a lot of really great features that they added to it. Promise the UI. And I wonder if some of this stuff got moved forward because the AI stuff landed badly and they needed a big draw. And so it does feel like a little bit like the company has scrambled more than usual.
They're definitely struggling. Their market cap is down to 3.1 trillion. So,
well, that may be, but it's really interesting to contrast these wonderful device makers that live at the intersection of software and hardware with this new generation of tech company that's, connected to the nuclear power grid with giant computing facilities and, rock star AI scientists making, this sort of future industrial economy. And you wonder if Apple's going to be a footnote in history.
Well, I think one of the things, just to wrap it around this winner-take-all system, is that when you are this big and have this much capital, you can make a ton of mistakes. I saw a guy using the Vision Pro at the pool. That's a massive mistake.
That's a good product.
It's simply never going to happen. Sorry.
Was he sitting on a lounge chair with the headset on?
Yeah.
Oh,
He wasn't looking at the Biscayne
pool.
Bay. He wasn't looking at the pool. He was locked into his metaverse.
Look, I gotta say, every time I put my Vision Pro back on, I'm reminded how what an exceptional product it is, and yet how useless it is at most of the things I needed to do. Those new personas where you see yourself in 3D are just a glimpse of the future. They're just.
Do you remember when you were putting it on every morning, sort of cosplaying a Vision Pro worker?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually for people who travel. I mean, AB, right? Like you strap that.
AB straps his laptop to his head. You need that.
Well, you strap your Starlink
that, like
to your
funny
backpack.
thing, there's that book, The Circle, which became a bad movie, but in that book, it talks about this divide of like people who are unplugged versus plugged. And what's interesting is more and more, I'm more unplugged than ever. I read a lot of this synthetic news less. I read more books and I talk to more people. And it's kind of scary to go the other. I don't think it's good.
No, I agree.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the advantages are going to be the people who have the wherewithal to resist getting sucked into a lot of the AI swap.
To the strap-ons, yeah.
That's it for this episode of People versus Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
See you later.